Hello everyone and welcome back to Star Trek Sundays, and this week I'm very excited to be taking a closer look at the Star Trek The Next Generation Captain Picard figure from QMX. Now, this figure actually came onto the market about 5 years ago. I feel like it was around about 2018, I may be wrong, and this is the standard edition version of this figure. They did do a special limited edition, which essentially is the same figure, the same packaging, it just comes with one extra accessory, which is the phase rifle. So that's the only key difference between these two figures, but obviously today I'm going to be looking at this standard edition release. Now, as a company, QMX or Quantum Mechanics have had a reasonable degree of success with their 1/6 scale Star Trek figures. They've produced a number of successful classic series or original series characters in this line, and they'd started to look at the Next Generation era, but to date, this is the only character that has actually been made from QMX from the Next Generation. Given that we've had such a long pause between releases, one can only assume that this subline is essentially dead. And of course, with the recent XO6 line starting up, we can probably assume that there will be no more Next Generation figures from QMX. So let's start off by taking a look at the packaging. It's a little bit wider than a lot of the other 1/6 scale figure boxes that I have in my collection, which I think is all for the good, gives a lot more room for presentation. And what we have here is very nice indeed. We have that central image there of the figure itself looking pretty good. It's contained within that Star Trek insignia, that logo, which looks really very nice. And it's an embossed metallic surface as well, so it catches the light very, very nicely, and it looks really good on display. Likewise, we can see the logo underneath where it says Star Trek The Next Generation. The font is actually incorrect for Star Trek. This isn't the Next Generation font, this is the original series font, which is perhaps a little bit of an oversight, but the Next Generation is in the correct font, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Now, behind this, you can see the decal of the Enterprise D, and of course this is embossed as well, so again, catches the light very nicely. If we flip it over, we can look at the side panel, and we can see here, obviously, we have this number 1, of course being the first entry in this subline dedicated to the Next Generation, and of course it's even got this sort of decoration and style from the TV show, so I think this is very nicely done. And then we can actually see at the bottom there, we can see this is celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Next Generation. If we flip it over to the other side, we have that more generic Star Trek logo, and again this is embossed and catches the light, very nice. On the reverse, we have this fantastic image of the figure in action, and behind it, again, in that Star Trek insignia, we can see the bridge of the Enterprise D. This looks really good and is very presentable if you want to put it on display. But this is just the slipcover. If we slide that up, we can reveal in a window display the figure underneath, which is fantastic. If we flip the packaging over, we have this rather nice piece of artwork, completely text-free, which is great, and of course it's in the silhouette of Captain Picard, and we have the universe within that silhouette. I think this is really nice, very attractive, and is very well presented. I have to say, first impressions with this figure when I open it up out of the packaging is that it's a real sense of quality. This is a high quality figure. It feels weighty and textured and surprisingly robust. And honestly, I love this head sculpt. I think they've caught the likeness of Patrick Stewart absolutely spot on. Now, admittedly, this is more of a sterner expression than I was perhaps expecting for Captain Picard, but I think this works perfectly well. It's pretty much neutral. I would have maybe perhaps preferred a little bit of an uptick as a smile, but this is great. This is a really good likeness, and I have to say, for me, it's probably the best likeness of Patrick Stewart I've ever seen on any 1/6 scale figure. Now, I do have to address the elephants in the room. You may notice that he has some dark marks around the neck. This has come off from the collar, and this was definitely a problem with this issue of this figure. A lot of people had this issue, and a lot of people were able to get replacements, I believe, at the time. But as you can see, it has definitely stained the neck, and this is something to be aware of if you're looking to pick one up on the secondary market. I absolutely love the tailoring of this costume. It is close-fitting, but not too tight, and it is nice and thick and textured. It feels very luxurious. Underneath, it feels like they've actually padded the costume out as well, so this feels very luxurious but also pretty screen accurate as well. I love all the little details, the individual pips on the collar there denoting rank, and of course his comm badge looks perfectly scaled, so this looks very, very nice. He comes with a number of different swappable hands, which we'll take a look at a little bit later, but they're all very nicely sculpted, they're all in the correct flesh tone, and they're nice and solid, but also have a softness to them as well to allow them to grip the various accessories, but hold them tight. He also has functioning pockets, which is great, and I wasn't expecting this because I wasn't entirely sure that these costumes ever actually had pockets in the show. At the bottom of the trousers there is actually elastic that actually wraps around the shoe underneath to hold it in place and keep the costume nice and taut. This works really well, and it's funny to see this in operation all these years later, because if anyone collected the 12-inch Star Trek figures from Playmates line, that's exactly what they used to do as well, so it's interesting to see that device still in use all these years later. But these shoes are very nicely sculpted. If we look at the back of the shoes, we can even see there's a little bit of detailing there, which is just a really nice extra touch, which is unexpected, and I think they've done a really great job of this. Of course, he also comes with this Star Trek insignia base. There's nothing really bespoke or unique to Captain Picard with this base. It doesn't light up, but I do think this is very nice, attractive, colourful, and looks good on display. In terms of articulation, he does have a ball joint at the neck, which will allow the head to spin all the way around from side to side. It can also lean left and right, and of course it will also bend forwards and backwards a pretty healthy distance. Now there's ball joints in the shoulders, so those arms will kick up and out to the side. There is a pin swivel at the lower arm, so that lower arm will rotate all the way around. It will also hinge to more than 90 degrees if you're willing to push it a little bit. It will get that little bit of extra give there. I'm not going to push mine too far today, but there is a little bit more room here. There's also a ball joint at the wrist that will allow that hand to rotate all the way around, and of course hinge forwards and backwards as well. Now there does seem to be a ball joint at the waist, which will allow this figure to move from side to side. I'm being very gentle with mine, but I think there's a lot more give here than I'm willing to push it to. He can lean left and right as well, and of course he can also bend forwards and backwards a pretty healthy distance. There's more ball joints in the hips, so the legs will kick out to the side, they will kick forwards, and they will come back. Pleasingly, there's a double joint at the knee that allows that lower leg to kick all the way back, which is fantastic. And then there is another ball joint at the ankle, which will allow that foot to swivel from side to side and hinge forwards and backwards as well. Pleasingly, he also comes with an absolute host of extra goodies, including an extra pair of closed fists, an open gripping hand, and then another additional 4 open hands for the various different accessories and gestures that we're familiar with this character. He also has a cup of tea, Earl Grey, hot of course. He has his phaser and phaser holster, and a tricorder with its holster, and then finally a data pad. One of the QMX innovations that I absolutely love is the fact that they use magnets to hold these pieces in place, and I think this is brilliant. That means we can have 2 distinctive looks for this character with or without these holsters, just as we see in the show, and they work so well. They simply clip onto his pants with no effort whatsoever, and they snugly hold the various accessories, whether it is tricorder or his phaser. They both look absolutely fantastic, and of course create these 2 very distinct looks for this character, which is absolutely brilliant. I love this so much. I think this is a tremendous idea. They've also taken it one step further with the tricorder, which actually has the ability to fold up, and again we can see some of the wonderful detailing here in paint apps on this device. I think this is really nicely done, but we can also unfold it. It's all held together with magnets, and you have the option to fold it up or simply have it fully extended, and it looks brilliant. I love the stickers and the detailing and how authentic this looks to what we see on screen. This is a tremendous prop, and I love the flexibility of this. Likewise, the hand phaser is very nicely sculpted and very well painted. This is pretty much perfect. And the same is true of the data pad, and I'm pleased that they opted to make this a bit more colourful and give this a bit more life and energy, so I'm really glad they've gone with this burgundy shade. And as you would expect, he holds all of these accessories with no problems whatsoever. His grip is nice and tight on that phaser and on the tricorder, depending on which hand you use, of course, but this is nice and snug. This looks really good. Everything looks to scale, and it just looks really authentic. This is like taking a screenshot from the TV show and just putting it on your shelf. I really don't have much in the way of criticism of this figure. I mean, yes, of course, there is the staining around the neck. That is a massive no-no and a bit of a disappointment, but I was prepared for that, so I'm not as harsh on it. I think if I bought this at the time and I'd received that, then I probably would have been a little bit more upset. But viewing it in hindsight, I think this is an absolutely tremendous figure. I love the quality and the texture of this figure. It feels like a really nice nicely made product. Like I said, it feels very robust, very strong in my hands and sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's going to snap or break, which is so rare in the 1/6 market. So there's a real sense of quality here. I love the tailoring of the costume. I love the little details, the combat, the pips on the collar, so accurately done. The scale and sizing, everything looks pretty much pitch perfect. And I love all these fantastic accessories, which are really well thought out. And of particular interest for me is the innovation of having those magnets in place for the tricorder most of all, but having those pouches as well, those holsters, being able to put them on display or remove them, just takes this over the top for me. I think this is a wonderful innovation that is really well executed and just adds to an already impressive figure. And let's not forget, I think this is a fantastic head sculpt as well. So all in all, I'm absolutely delighted to have this figure in my collection. I was in two minds with obviously the upcoming X06 offerings, but I was a little bit impatient and I desperately wanted to make sure that I had Captain Picard in my 1/6 collection, and I'm really glad that I managed to track him down. I think he was absolutely worth every penny, and I think he's a wonderful addition to this collection. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.